The moment I opened that bedroom door, I lost my husband, my sister, and every dream I'd ever had, all in the space of a single heartbeat. My name is Yolanda, and this is the story of the betrayal that nearly destroyed me, and the strength I didn't know I had until I was forced to find it. I need to take you back to the beginning. Back to before the lies, before the broken promises, before I learned that the two people I trusted most in this world had been deceiving me in the cruelest way imaginable. I grew up in a small house on Elm Street in Memphis, Tennessee, me and my younger sister, Janelle. We were only 18 months apart, close enough in age to share clothes, share secrets, share everything. Our mama used to say we were two halves of the same heart, born in separate bodies. Janelle was the pretty one, everyone said so. She had our father's light eyes and our mother's delicate features. I was the smart one, the responsible one, the one who helped Mama pay the bills when Daddy left and never came back. But I never resented Janelle for being beautiful. I loved her. I protected her. When boys broke her heart in high school, I was the one who held her while she cried. When she dropped out of community college and couldn't find a job, I was the one who let her move into my apartment rent-free. That's just what sisters do. That's what I believed. I met my husband, Derek, when I was 26 years old. I was working as an office manager at a construction company, and he came in one day to bid on a project. Tall, dark-skinned, with a smile that made me forget my own name. He asked for my number before he left, and I gave it to him without hesitation. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. A simple ring, a simple question, a simple yes that changed my entire life. We got married at the courthouse with Janelle as my maid of honor and Derek's brother, Marcus, as his best man. It wasn't a fancy wedding, but it was ours, and I was happy. For the first 3 years of our marriage, I was genuinely, completely happy. Derek worked long hours at his own small contracting business, but he always came home to me. We bought a little house in Whitehaven, nothing special, but it had a backyard and a porch swing and enough room for the children we dreamed about having. Janelle was still living with us, still figuring out her life. She'd gotten a job as a receptionist at a dental office, but she was always between boyfriends, always in some kind of minor crisis. I didn't mind. She was my sister. My home was her home. That's what I told myself anyway. I found out I was pregnant on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd been feeling off for weeks, tired, nauseous, emotional about everything. Derek kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying I was fine, just stressed from work. But finally, I bought a test, just to rule it out. 2 pink lines. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and stared at that little plastic stick until my vision blurred with tears. We'd been trying for over a year with no success. I'd started to wonder if something was wrong with me, if maybe motherhood wasn't in the cards. But here it was, a miracle, our baby. Derek cried when I told him. Actually cried, tears streaming down his face as he pulled me into his arms and spun me around the kitchen. Janelle screamed with excitement and immediately started planning a baby shower. For a few weeks, everything was perfect. The pregnancy was hard, I won't lie about that. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Swollen feet. Backaches that made it impossible to sleep. But I didn't complain. This baby was a blessing, and I was grateful for every uncomfortable moment. Janelle was surprisingly helpful during those early months. She'd bring me crackers and ginger ale when I was too nauseous to move. She'd rub my feet while we watched TV together. She'd talk to my belly, telling the baby stories about all the things Auntie Janelle was going to teach them. I thought we'd never been closer. I didn't notice the way she looked at Derek when she thought I wasn't watching. I didn't notice the way their conversations would stop abruptly when I entered a room. I didn't notice the late nights when Derek claimed he was working and Janelle claimed she was out with friends. I was blind, trusting, stupid. The first clue came when I was about 5 months along. I'd come home early from a doctor's appointment, everything was fine with the baby, and I'd been so excited to share the ultrasound photos that I'd skipped my usual stop at the grocery store. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. Derek's truck was in the driveway, which was strange because he'd told me he had a job site across town all day. Janelle's car was there too, parked in her usual spot beside the garage. I called out as I came through the door. "Hello, Derek. Janelle." No answer. I walked through the living room, through the kitchen, down the hallway toward the bedrooms. The house felt different somehow. Charged with something I couldn't name, I found them in the kitchen. They were standing by the counter about 3 feet apart, but something about their body language made me pause. Derek looked flushed. Janelle was smoothing down her hair, not meeting my eyes. "Hey, baby," Derek said, his voice slightly too loud. "You're home early." "Doctor's appointment was quick," I said slowly, looking between them. "What are you two doing?" "Nothing," Janelle said quickly, too quickly. "Just talking. Derek came home for lunch and I made sandwiches." I looked at the counter. There were no plates, no sandwiches, no evidence of lunch at all. "Okay," I said, pushing down the unease rising in my chest. "Well, I have ultrasound pictures if you want to see them." The tension broke. Derek crossed the room to hug me, exclaiming over the photos. Janelle cooed and awed appropriately. Everything returned to normal. But that night, lying in bed next to my husband, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I told myself I was being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones making me crazy. Derek loved me. Janelle loved me. There was nothing going on. I told myself that lie for 3 more months. The signs kept coming, but I kept ignoring them. Derek started working later and later, coming home after I was already asleep. He was distant during dinner, distracted during conversations, always checking his phone with a frown on his face. "Work stuff," he'd say when I asked. "Client problems, you know how it is." I didn't know, but I wanted to believe him. Janelle started acting strange too. She'd disappear for hours without explanation, then come home looking flushed and happy. She stopped confiding in me about her love life, something she'd always done before. "I'm just focusing on myself right now," she'd say when I asked if she was seeing anyone. "Working on me?" One evening, I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I found a receipt in Derek's jacket pocket. A restaurant I'd never been to. A dinner for 2. The date was 3 nights ago when Derek had told me he was working late on a project. My hands trembled as I stared at that little slip of paper. There's an explanation, I told myself. A client dinner. A business meeting. Something innocent. But the voice in the back of my mind, the voice I'd been silencing for months, whispered something different. "You know, you've always known. You just don't want to see it." I didn't confront Derek about the receipt. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. I wanted to throw that little slip of paper in his face and demand answers. I wanted to scream and cry and force him to tell me the truth. But I was scared. Scared of what he might say. Scared of what it might mean. Scared that if I pulled at this thread, my entire life would unravel. So I did what I'd been doing for months. I pushed it down. I told myself there was an explanation. I focused on the baby growing inside me, on the nursery we were decorating, on the future we were supposed to have together. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted, swollen, emotional. I didn't have the energy for a confrontation that might destroy everything. At least, that's what I told myself. Janelle announced her pregnancy 2 weeks later. We were sitting at the dinner table, me, Derek, and Janelle, eating the pot roast I'd spent all afternoon preparing. My feet were propped up on a chair because they'd swollen to twice their normal size. Derek was scrolling through his phone between bites, barely present. "I have something to tell you," Janelle said suddenly, setting down her fork. I looked up, noting the strange expression on her face. Nervous, excited, something else I couldn't quite read. "What is it?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between us. For a moment, I felt nothing but joy. My sister was having a baby, too. Our children would grow up together, cousins who were almost like twins. It was perfect. "Janelle!" I pushed myself up from my chair, awkward with my huge belly, and pulled her into a hug. "That's amazing. How far along are you?" "About 3 months," she said, hugging me back. Her body felt tense against mine, but I attributed it to nerves. 3 months, I repeated, doing the math in my head. "So you'll be due around August. End of August, beginning of September." I pulled back to look at her, my hands on her shoulders. "Who's the father?" I asked. "You've been so secretive about your love life lately. Is it someone we know?" Janelle's eyes flickered just for a second toward Derek. And Derek, my husband, the father of my child, looked down at his plate. In that moment, something cold slithered into my chest. A suspicion so dark, so terrible that I couldn't even form it into a complete thought. "No," I told myself. "No, you're being paranoid. You're being crazy. There's no way." "It's complicated," Janelle said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm not ready to talk about the father yet. I just wanted you to know about the baby." I nodded slowly, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Well, whoever he is, I'm happy for you," I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. "We're going to be pregnant together. Our babies will grow up together." Janelle smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah," she said softly. "Together." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my hand resting on my swollen belly. The baby was active, kicking and rolling like she knew something was wrong. Derek lay beside me, snoring softly, oblivious to the storm building inside my head. Who is the father? The question echoed in my mind, demanding an answer I didn't want to face. I thought about all the signs I'd been ignoring. The late nights, the strange tension, the receipt for a dinner I wasn't invited to, the way Janelle and Derek had stood in the kitchen that day, looking guilty about something. No, I told myself again. Derek would never, Janelle would never. They love me. But the voice in the back of my mind, the voice I'd been silencing for months, was getting louder. 3 months pregnant. That means she conceived around Christmas. Remember Christmas? Remember how Derek disappeared for 2 hours, claiming he had to help a friend with a car problem? Remember how Janelle was gone at the same time? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the thoughts. Remember how they both came back looking flushed and happy? Remember how Derek couldn't look you in the eye for the rest of the night? Stop it, I whispered to myself. Just stop. But the thoughts wouldn't stop. They kept coming, piece after piece of evidence that I'd been too blind or too scared to see. I got out of bed as quietly as I could, my huge belly making every movement difficult. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to think. I walked to the living room and sat on the couch, staring out the window at the dark street beyond. The neighborhood was quiet. Everyone else was sleeping peacefully, unaware that my world was crumbling around me. What if it's true, I thought? What if Derek and Janelle? I couldn't even finish the sentence. The thought was too painful, too impossible. My own sister, my own husband, my own blood and my own heart betraying me together. No, I told myself one more time. There has to be another explanation. I'm jumping to conclusions. I'm letting my insecurities get the best of me. But even as I thought the words, I knew they were lies. I started watching them more closely after that. Not obviously, I didn't want them to know I was suspicious. But I paid attention to things I'd been ignoring before. The way Janelle would touch Derek's arm when she talked to him. The way he'd smile at her, a different smile than the one he gave me. The way they'd both tense up when I entered a room unexpectedly. I checked Derek's phone one night while he was in the shower. He'd changed his password, something he'd never done before in our entire relationship. When I asked him about it, he said it was for work security. Can't be too careful these days, he said, not meeting my eyes. I searched Janelle's room when she was at work. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I needed to find something. Some proof that I was wrong, that my suspicions were baseless, that the two people I loved most in this world hadn't been lying to me for months. Instead, I found a necklace. It was hidden in the back of her jewelry box, a delicate gold chain with a small heart pendant. I recognized it immediately. I'd seen Derek buying it at the mall 3 months ago. He told me it was for his mother's birthday. His mother's birthday was in November, not January. I sat on the edge of Janelle's bed, holding that necklace in my shaking hands, and felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. It's true, I thought. It's all true. But I still didn't have proof. Not real proof. Just circumstantial evidence that could be explained away with enough creativity. I needed more. I needed to catch them. And 3 days later, I did. It was a Saturday afternoon. Derek had told me he was going to a job site to meet with a client. Janelle had said she was going to the mall to shop for baby clothes. I'd nodded and smiled and wished them both a good day. Then I waited. 20 minutes after they left, I got in my car and drove to Derek's supposed job site, an office building downtown that he'd been renovating for the past few months. His truck wasn't there. I sat in the parking lot for a long moment, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I'd known this would happen. I'd known he was lying. But seeing the empty lot, the irrefutable proof that he wasn't where he'd said he'd be, it still felt like a punch to the gut. I drove around for a while, not sure what to do next. I couldn't go home. The thought of sitting in that empty house, waiting for them to come back with their lies and their fake smiles, made me physically ill. So I drove to the one place I never expected to find them, the apartment where Janelle's friend Crystal used to live. Crystal had moved to Atlanta 6 months ago, but Janelle still had a key. She'd mentioned something about watering the plants while Crystal figured out what to do with the lease. I don't know why I went there. Instinct, maybe. Or maybe some part of me already knew. I parked across the street and stared at the building. Derek's truck was in the lot. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding against my ribs. The baby was kicking furiously, sensing my distress, adding to the chaos inside my body. You could leave, I thought. You could drive away right now and pretend you never saw this. You could go home, wait for them to come back, and keep living the lie. But I couldn't. I'd spent months ignoring the signs, pushing down my suspicions, telling myself that I was crazy. I'd let fear control me, let denial protect me from a truth I wasn't ready to face. That ended now. I got out of the car. My swollen feet ached as they hit the pavement. My back screamed in protest as I straightened up, my enormous belly throwing off my balance. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted, and about to confront the two biggest betrayals of my life. But I walked toward that building anyway. The front door was locked, but I knew the code. Janelle had given it to me months ago, back when Crystal still lived here and I'd helped her move some furniture. My fingers trembled as I punched in the numbers. The door buzzed open. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing, one hand on my belly. Crystal's apartment was on the second floor. 2B, I could hear muffled sounds as I approached, sounds that made my stomach turn. Laughter, music, the low murmur of conversation. And then, unmistakably, my husband's voice. "Come here, baby. You know I missed you." I stood outside that door, frozen, listening to Derek say words meant for someone else. Words he used to say to me. Words that had lost their meaning somewhere along the way, replaced by lies and secrets and stolen afternoons in another woman's apartment. My sister's apartment. I could have knocked. I could have announced myself, given them a chance to get dressed, to prepare their excuses to spin another web of lies. But I was done with courtesy. Done with being the understanding wife, the supportive sister, the woman who always put everyone else's comfort before her own. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The apartment was small, just a living room, a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a bedroom. The living room was empty, but the bedroom door was ajar, and through it I could see everything. Derek and Janelle, together, in bed. His shirt was off. Her dress was pushed up around her waist. They were tangled together, laughing about something, completely unaware that their world was about to come crashing down. I don't remember making a sound, but I must have because suddenly they both looked up. And the expressions on their faces, the shock, the guilt, the absolute horror will be burned into my memory forever. "Yolanda!" Derek scrambled off the bed, grabbing for his shirt. "Baby, this isn't..." "Don't." The word came out quiet, deadly. "Don't you dare say this isn't what it looks like." Janelle was crying already, pulling down her dress, her hands shaking. "Yolanda, please let me explain." "Explain what?" I felt strangely calm, like I was floating above my own body, watching this scene unfold from somewhere far away. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my husband. Explain how you got pregnant by him while I was carrying his child. Explain how you looked me in the face every single day and lied to me." "It's not like that," Derek said, moving toward me. "It just happened. We didn't mean for it to. Stay away from me." He stopped, hands raised, like he was approaching a wild animal. "How long?" I asked, my voice still eerily calm. "How long has this been going on?" They looked at each other, a look that told me everything I needed to know. A look that said they'd shared 1,000 secrets behind my back, built an entire relationship on the foundation of my trust. "How long?" 8 months, Janelle whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It started 8 months ago." 8 months. The same amount of time I'd been pregnant. The realization hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been growing our child, experiencing all the discomforts and challenges of pregnancy, believing that Derek was by my side, supporting me, loving me, he'd been sleeping with my sister. From the very beginning. "The baby," I said, turning to Janelle. "Your baby, it's his, isn't it?" She couldn't meet my eyes. That was answer enough. "You're carrying my husband's child." I heard my own voice crack, the calm finally breaking. "My sister is carrying my husband's child." "Yolanda, please." Derek reached for me again. "Don't touch me." The scream tore out of me, raw and primal. All the pain I'd been holding back, all the anger and heartbreak and disbelief exploded in that single moment. "Don't you ever touch me again, either of you." I was shaking now, my whole body trembling. The baby was going crazy inside me, kicking and rolling like she was trying to escape. I pressed my hand to my belly, trying to calm her, trying to calm myself. "You destroyed everything," I said, tears finally streaming down my face. "Both of you, you destroyed our family, you destroyed our marriage, you destroyed us." "We didn't mean to hurt you," Janelle sobbed. "It just happened, we couldn't control what, your bodies, your choices." I laughed bitterly. "You had a choice every single time. You chose this. Both of you. You chose to betray me over and over again, and now you want me to believe it just happened." Derek was crying now too. Big, heaving sobs that I'd never seen from him before. A year ago, I might have felt sorry for him, might have wanted to comfort him. Now I felt nothing but disgust. "I want you out of my house," I said, my voice hardening. "Both of you, by the time I get home, I want every trace of you gone. Yolanda, we can talk about this." There is nothing to talk about. You can have each other. You can raise your baby together, but you will never be part of my life again." I turned and walked out of that apartment, leaving them with their tears and their guilt and their broken excuses. I don't remember the drive home. I must have made it somehow, because the next thing I knew, I was sitting in my car in my own driveway, staring at the house that had once represented all my dreams. A home, a family, a future. Now it just looked like a crime scene. My phone was buzzing constantly, Derek calling, Janelle calling, texts from both of them begging me to listen, to give them a chance to explain. I turned it off and threw it in the back seat. Then I called the only person I could think of, my best friend Keisha. "Hey girl, I need you." The words came out choked, barely audible. "Please, I need you right now. Where are you?" Her voice changed instantly, all business. "I'm coming. Home, I'm at home. Don't move, I'll be there in 20 minutes. She made it in 15. When she pulled into the driveway, I was still sitting in my car, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. She opened my door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask any questions. She just held me, and I cried. I cried for my marriage, for my sister, for the family I thought I was building, for the future that had just crumbled to dust in my hands. I cried until there was nothing left. Keisha helped me pack that night. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, toiletries, important documents. Everything I needed to survive until I could figure out my next move. Derek and Janelle were gone, just like I demanded. But the house still smelled like them, like his cologne and her perfume. Like their betrayal, soaked into every wall, every piece of furniture, every memory we'd created in those rooms. I couldn't stay there, not one more night. Keisha took me to her apartment, set me up in her guest room, and made me drink tea even though I said I wasn't hungry. "You need to eat something," she insisted. "For the baby." The baby. I put my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter move inside me. Through everything that had happened, she was still there, still growing, still depending on me. "What am I going to do, Keisha?" I whispered. "I'm about to have a baby. I have no husband, no home, my own sister." My voice broke. "You're going to survive," Keisha said firmly, taking my hands in hers. "That's what you're going to do. You're the strongest woman I know, Yolanda. You've survived worse than this." "Have I? You survived your daddy leaving. You survived putting yourself through school. You survived everything life has thrown at you." She squeezed my hands. "You will survive this too, and I'll be right here beside you every step of the way." The next few days passed in a blur of pain and logistics. I filed for divorce on Monday morning, sat in a lawyer's office with my swollen belly and my broken heart, signing papers that would end 7 years of marriage. The attorney, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, handled everything with efficiency and compassion. "Given the circumstances," she said, "and the fact that you're about to give birth, we can expedite certain aspects of the process. Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" "I'm with a friend." "Good, and the house?" "I don't want it." The words came out before I'd even thought them through. "I don't want anything that reminds me of him. He can have it." Patricia nodded slowly, making notes on her legal pad. "What about financial support? Child support, spousal maintenance?" I thought about Derek, about the business he'd built, the money we'd saved together, the future we'd planned. "I want what's fair for my daughter," I said. "Nothing more, nothing less. I don't want his money. I just want to be free of him." "Understandable. We'll make sure your daughter is provided for." I signed everything she put in front of me. Each signature felt like a small death, the death of my marriage, my trust, my belief in the people I loved. But it also felt like a beginning. Derek tried to contact me constantly. Calls, texts, emails, letters. He showed up at Keisha's apartment 3 times, begging to talk, claiming he could explain, swearing that he loved me and only me. I refused to see him. How can he say he loves me? I asked Keisha one night, staring at yet another text message filled with apologies. How can he use that word after what he did? Keisha shook her head, her expression hard. "Men like that don't know what love means," she said. "They think love is possession, ownership, having someone who waits for them at home while they do whatever they want." But why Janelle? The question that had been eating at me since that day in the apartment. Of all the women in the world, why my sister? Keisha was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe because she was convenient," she said finally. "She was right there in your house every single day, and some men, they don't see women as people, they see them as opportunities." "And Janelle, what's her excuse?" Keisha sighed. "I don't know, honey, only she can answer that. But in my experience, some people are broken in ways that make them hurt the ones who love them most. Maybe she was jealous of you. Maybe she wanted what you had. Maybe she's just selfish and couldn't see past her own wants." I thought about my sister. about all the years I'd protected her, supported her, given her everything I had, and I wondered if she'd ever loved me at all. Janelle tried to reach me too, but her attempts were different from Derek's. Where Derek was aggressive, persistent, demanding my attention, Janelle was tentative. A single text every few days. A voicemail left in the middle of the night, her voice thick with tears. "Yolanda, please. I know you hate me, I hate myself. But please, just let me explain. You're my sister. You're the only family I have left. I can't lose you too." I listened to that voicemail 17 times. Each time I felt something different. Anger, grief, a desperate, aching wish that none of this had happened, that I could go back to the time when my sister was my best friend and my husband was faithful and my life made sense. But I couldn't go back. None of us could. On the 18th listen, I deleted the voicemail and blocked Janelle's number. My mother found out a week after everything happened. I hadn't told her, I hadn't told anyone except Keisha. I was still processing, still trying to understand how my life had fallen apart so completely. I wasn't ready to explain it to someone else, but somehow, word got back to her. Maybe Derek told his family, and they told someone who told someone else. Memphis wasn't that big. Secrets never stayed secret for long. She showed up at Keisha's apartment on a Thursday afternoon, her face a mask of fury and grief. "Tell me it's not true," she said, gripping my hands. "Tell me what I heard isn't true." I couldn't lie to her. I'd had enough lies to last a lifetime. "It's true, Mama. Derek and Janelle, they've been together for months. The baby she's carrying, it's his." My mother's face crumpled. She was a strong woman, my mama. She'd survived my father's abandonment, raised 2 daughters alone, worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I'd never seen her break down, not even when things were at their worst. But she broke down now. "My babies," she kept saying over and over. "My 2 babies. How could this happen? How could she do this to you?" I held my mother while she cried, feeling the strange reversal of roles. I should have been the one crying, being comforted. But somehow, in that moment, I found strength I didn't know I had. "I'm going to be okay, Mama," I said, stroking her hair. I'm going to get through this. And Janelle," I was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," I said finally. "I don't know if I can ever forgive her. I don't know if I want to." My mother pulled back, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. "She's your sister, Yolanda, your blood." She stopped being my sister the moment she climbed into bed with my husband. Mama flinched at the harshness in my voice. "I'm not saying forgive her now," she said carefully. "I'm not saying forgive her ever if that's what you need. But don't let the hate poison you. Don't let what she did turn you into someone you're not." I thought about that for a long time after she left. Was I letting hate poison me? Was my anger at Janelle turning me into someone cold, someone bitter, someone incapable of love? Or was I just protecting myself the only way I knew how? My daughter was born 3 weeks later. It was a Tuesday, just like the day I found out I was pregnant. Just like the day I found out my whole life was a lie. Tuesdays apparently were my days for life-changing events. The labor was long and hard, 18 hours of contractions, of pushing, of crying and screaming and praying for it to be over. Keisha was there the whole time, holding my hand, feeding me ice chips, telling me I was strong even when I didn't feel strong at all. And then, finally, she was here. 6 pounds, 11 ounces. A head full of dark curls. A cry so loud and indignant that the nurses laughed and said she was going to be a firecracker. They placed her on my chest, warm and wet and perfect, and I felt something shift inside me. All the anger, all the pain, all the grief I'd been carrying for weeks, it didn't disappear. But it moved aside, made room for something bigger, something more important. Love. Pure, unconditional, overwhelming love for this tiny person who was finally in my arms. "Hi, baby girl," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Hi, Maya, I'm your mama." I'd chosen her name weeks ago. Maya meaning water, because water is adaptable, resilient, capable of flowing around any obstacle. That's what I wanted for my daughter. That's what I wanted for myself. Derek tried to come to the hospital. Keisha intercepted him in the hallway, told him in no uncertain terms that he wasn't welcome. I heard their argument through the closed door of my room, his desperate pleas, her unwavering refusal. "She's my daughter, too," Derek kept saying. "I have a right to see her." "You lost your rights when you decided to sleep with her sister," Keisha fired back. "Now get out before I call security." He left eventually. But he sent flowers, 24 red roses with a card that said, "Congratulations on our beautiful daughter. I will always love you both." I had the nurses throw them away. The first few weeks of motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights and feeding schedules and overwhelming, terrifying responsibility. But I wasn't alone. Keisha took time off work to help me. My mother came over every day, cooking meals, doing laundry, holding Maya while I showered or slept. Even Keisha's mother, Miss Dorothy, stopped by with casseroles and advice, and the kind of no-nonsense grandmother wisdom that I desperately needed. "You're doing fine," she told me one afternoon, watching me fumble with a diaper for the third time. "Every new mama feels like she's failing, but that baby is fed, clothed, and loved. That's all that matters." "What if I can't do this alone?" I asked, tears threatening. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Miss Dorothy laughed, a warm, rich sound that filled the room. "Honey, you're already doing it. Every time you get up in the middle of the night, every time you put that baby's needs before your own, you're proving how strong you are." She patted my hand. "And you're not alone. You've got a whole village around you. Don't ever forget that." I looked at my daughter, sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, and felt something settle in my chest. I could do this. I would do this. Not for Derek, not for Janelle, not for anyone but myself and this precious little girl who depended on me. The public unraveling happened gradually, then all at once. In a city like Memphis, where everyone knows everyone and gossip travels faster than wildfire, it was impossible to keep something like this quiet. Within weeks, the whole story was out: my husband, my sister, the pregnancy, the affair. I didn't tell anyone besides Keisha and my mother. I didn't have to. Derek's family found out first. His mother, Miss Caroline, called me 3 weeks after Maya was born, her voice trembling with shame. "Yolanda, I don't have words," she said. "What my son did to you, I raised him better than this, or I thought I did. It's not your fault, Miss Caroline. Maybe not, but I'm still sorry. And I want you to know you and that baby will always be family to me. No matter what happens with Derek, no matter what he's done, you are the mother of my grandchild. That means something." I cried after that phone call. Not from sadness, exactly, but from the unexpected grace of a woman who had every reason to stay silent, choosing to reach out instead. Derek's brother Marcus was next. He showed up at Keisha's apartment one evening, looking uncomfortable and apologetic. "I had no idea," he said, standing on the doorstep, refusing to come in. "I swear to you, Yolanda, I had no idea what was going on. If I'd known, what would you have done?" He was quiet for a moment. "I would have told you," he said finally. "You deserved to know. You deserved better than what my brother did to you." "Yes," I agreed. "I did." Marcus nodded, accepting the rebuke. "For what it's worth, the whole family is furious with him. Dad won't speak to him. Mom cries every time his name comes up, and me." He shook his head. "He was my big brother. I looked up to him my whole life. Now I don't even know who he is." "Neither do I," Marcus left after that, promising to stay in touch. I wasn't sure if he would. Family loyalty is a complicated thing, but I appreciated the gesture. The church found out next. We'd been members of Greater Hope Baptist since we got married. Derek was a deacon. I sang in the choir. We sat in the same pew every Sunday, 3rd row from the front, holding hands during the sermon like the perfect couple everyone believed we were. Pastor Williams called me personally when the rumors reached him. "Sister Yolanda," he said, his voice heavy with concern, "I've heard some troubling things. I wanted to reach out, see how you're doing, see if there's anything the church can do to help." I told him the truth, all of it. The affair, the pregnancy, the betrayal. I didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't try to protect Derek's reputation. Those days were over. Pastor Williams was silent for a long moment after I finished. "I'm going to ask Derek to step down as deacon," he said finally. "Effective immediately. What he's done. It's a violation of everything we stand for, everything he promised before God and this congregation." "Thank you, Pastor. And you, Sister Yolanda, you are welcome at Greater Hope anytime. Don't let shame keep you away. You did nothing wrong. You have nothing to be ashamed of." I didn't go back to that church. Not because I was ashamed, but because every pew, every hymn, every familiar face reminded me of the life I'd lost. I needed a fresh start, not a constant reminder of the past. But I appreciated Pastor Williams' words. I appreciated being believed, being supported, being reminded that I wasn't the villain in this story. Janelle faced her own consequences. The dental office where she worked let her go 2 months after the scandal broke. "Not a good fit for our family practice," they told her, though everyone knew the real reason. In a small community, reputation matters. And Janelle's reputation was destroyed. She moved in with Derek, into the house I used to share with him, the house where we'd planned to raise our children together. I heard they were trying to make it work, trying to build something real out of the ashes of their betrayal. Part of me wanted them to fail, wanted karma to catch up with them, wanted them to suffer the way they'd made me suffer. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth. Another part of me, a smaller, quieter part, just wanted to stop caring altogether. Wanted to reach a place where Derek and Janelle and whatever happened between them simply didn't matter anymore. I wasn't there yet, but I was working on it. My mother tried to broker peace between me and Janelle. She'd visit me at Keisha's apartment, spend time with Maya, and then inevitably bring up my sister. She's struggling, Yolanda. She's depressed. She barely leaves the house. That's not my problem. She's going to have a baby soon, your niece or nephew. Don't you want to know your family? That baby is also my daughter's sibling, I said, the words like acid in my mouth. Half-sibling because Janelle decided to have a child with my husband. Mama flinched but didn't back down. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm just asking you to leave the door open. Someday, when the pain isn't so fresh, you might feel differently. And if I don't? Mama looked at me with sad eyes. Then that's your choice to make. I just don't want you to wake up 20 years from now with regrets. I thought about her words long after she left. Was I going to regret cutting Janelle out of my life? Was I making a decision in anger that I'd later wish I could take back? Maybe. But right now, the wound was too raw, the betrayal too deep. I couldn't think about reconciliation when I was still trying to survive. Janelle gave birth to a baby boy in late August. She named him Derek Jr. I heard the news from my mother, who'd been at the hospital. She showed me pictures on her phone, a tiny, wrinkled infant with Derek's nose and Janelle's eyes. I looked at those photos and felt nothing, not anger, not jealousy, not even grief, just emptiness. He's beautiful, I said, handing the phone back. Do you want to meet him? Janelle said. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I'm not ready, Mama. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. Mama nodded, accepting my answer. Okay, baby, whenever you are, if you ever are. The divorce was finalized 6 months after I filed. I sat in the lawyer's office one last time, signing my name on the final papers, watching 7 years of marriage dissolve with the stroke of a pen. Derek wasn't there. His lawyer handled everything on his behalf. Apparently, he couldn't face me, couldn't look me in the eye while we officially ended what he'd already destroyed. Coward. How do you feel? Patricia asked as I handed her the signed documents. I thought about the question. Free, I said finally. I feel free. And I meant it. For the first time since that terrible day in Crystal's apartment, I felt like I could breathe. Like the weight that had been pressing down on my chest for months had finally lifted. The marriage was over. The lies were done. I could finally start building something new. I moved into my own apartment that spring. A small 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, far from the house I'd shared with Derek, far from the memories that haunted every corner of my old life. Keisha helped me paint the walls, soft yellow for Maya's room, peaceful blue for mine. We hung pictures, arranged furniture, made it feel like home. Maya was almost a year old by then, walking, babbling, getting into everything. She had Derek's smile, a fact that used to hurt me, but was starting to fade into acceptance. She was her own person, not responsible for her father's choices, and she was the light of my life. Every morning, I'd wake up to her giggles coming from the crib. Every night, I'd rock her to sleep, singing the same lullabies my mother used to sing to me. Every milestone, every new word, every wobbly step, every messy attempt at feeding herself felt like a gift. Derek had visitation rights. Every other weekend, he'd pick Maya up and spend time with her. I hated those weekends, hated seeing his face at my door, hated watching my daughter leave with the man who'd betrayed me. But I kept my feelings hidden. Whatever anger I had toward Derek, I wouldn't let it poison Maya's relationship with her father. She deserved to know him, to love him, to make her own judgments when she was old enough. You're doing the right thing, Keisha told me after one particularly difficult handoff. I know it's hard, but you're putting Maya first. That's what good mothers do. Sometimes I want to scream at him, I admitted. Sometimes I want to tell him exactly what I think of him right there in the doorway. But you don't. No, I don't, Keisha smiled. That's strength, Yolanda, real strength. Not the kind that fights back, but the kind that holds on when everything inside you wants to let go. Time passed. Slowly at first, then faster, the way it does when you stop counting the days and start living them instead. Maya grew. She went from babbling to talking, from wobbly steps to running through the apartment at full speed, from the tiny infant I'd held in the hospital to a fierce, funny, brilliant little girl who had opinions about everything. She had Derek's smile, yes, but she had my stubbornness, my determination, my refusal to give up no matter how hard things got. And she had her own light, something that belonged only to her, that no one else could claim or take away. I went back to work when she was 8 months old. Not at the construction company, that felt too close to Derek, too tied to my old life. Instead, I found a position as an office manager at a nonprofit that helped single mothers get back on their feet. The irony wasn't lost on me. Every day, I worked with women who were rebuilding their lives after divorce, abandonment, betrayal. Women who were raising children alone, stretching every dollar, fighting for a future that seemed impossibly far away. They were me and I was them. "How do you do it?" one of them asked me once. A young woman named Tasha, barely 22, with twin toddlers and an ex who'd left her for another woman. "How do you keep going when everything falls apart?" I thought about the question for a long moment. "One day at a time," I said finally. "That's the only way. You don't look at the whole mountain. You just take the next step, and then the next. And eventually, you look back and realize you've climbed higher than you ever thought possible." Tasha nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "Does it ever stop hurting?" "The hurt changes," I said honestly. "It doesn't disappear, not completely, but it gets smaller, quieter. It stops being the first thing you think about when you wake up and the last thing you think about before you sleep." "How long did that take?" I smiled sadly. "I'll let you know when I get there." 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Janelle at the grocery store. I was in the produce section, squeezing avocados, Maya sitting in the cart and chattering away about the cartoon she'd watched that morning. I wasn't paying attention to anything except her voice and the ripeness of the fruit in my hand. And then I looked up, and there she was, Janelle, standing at the end of the aisle, frozen, a basket hanging from her arm. She looked different, thinner, older, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her son, Derek Jr., now almost 2, was strapped to her hip, squirming impatiently. For a long moment, neither of us moved. 2 years of silence. 2 years of blocked phone numbers and returned letters and a wall of hurt that neither of us knew how to climb over. All of it hung between us in that grocery store aisle, invisible but palpable. Maya noticed her first. "Mama, who's that lady?" The question broke the spell. I looked down at my daughter, then back at my sister. "Nobody, baby," I said softly. "Just someone I used to know." I turned my cart and walked away without another word. But I felt Janelle's eyes on my back the whole way out of the store. That night, after Maya was asleep, I sat on my couch and cried. Not the angry, bitter tears I'd cried in the early days. These were different, softer, sadder, full of a grief I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Grief for my sister. Not the woman she'd become, the woman who'd betrayed me and broken our family, but the sister she used to be. The little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who told me all her secrets. The young woman I'd supported through every crisis, every heartbreak, every failure. That Janelle was gone. Maybe she'd never really existed at all. Or maybe she had, and something had broken inside her somewhere along the way, something that made her capable of hurting the person who loved her most. I would never know. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my blocked contacts until I found her name. My thumb hovered over the unblock button for a long moment. Then I put the phone down and walked away. I wasn't ready. I might never be ready. But for the first time in 2 years, I admitted to myself that I wanted to be. Someday. 3 months later, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was Derek's mother, Miss Caroline. Her voice was strange, thick and strained, like she'd been crying. "Yolanda, I need to tell you something. It's about Derek." My heart clenched. Despite everything, despite all the anger and hurt, some part of me still cared about the man I'd once loved. "What happened?" "He was in a car accident last night. A drunk driver ran a red light and..." She broke off, sobbing. "He's in the hospital. He's in a coma. They don't know if he's going to wake up." I sat down slowly, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. "Oh God! The doctors say the next few days are critical if he doesn't wake up by the end of the week." Miss Caroline couldn't finish the sentence. I thought about Derek. About the man he'd been when I first met him, charming, funny, full of dreams. About the man he'd become, a liar, a cheater, someone who destroyed our marriage without a second thought. About the man in between, the one who'd held me when I cried, who'd laughed at my terrible jokes, who'd looked at me on our wedding day like I was the only woman in the world. That man was in a hospital bed right now, fighting for his life. "I'll come," I heard myself say. "I'll bring Maya. She should see her father." Miss Caroline sobbed louder. "Thank you, Yolanda, thank you. Despite everything, you've always been the better person." I wasn't sure that was true. But I hung up the phone and started getting ready anyway. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and grief. I walked through the corridors with Maya in my arms, past doctors and nurses and families huddled in waiting rooms. Every step felt heavy, weighted with memories and emotions I'd tried so hard to bury. Derek's room was at the end of the ICU wing. His mother met me at the door, her face puffy from crying. He looks bad, she warned me. All the tubes and machines. It's a lot. I can handle it. I stepped into the room. Derek lay in the hospital bed, pale and still. Bandages covered half his face. Machines beeped and whirred around him, monitoring every heartbeat, every breath. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished somehow, like the accident had drained something essential out of him. Maya squirmed in my arms. "Daddy," she said, pointing at the bed. "Daddy's sleeping." "Yes, baby, Daddy's sleeping." "When Daddy wake up?" I felt tears prick my eyes. "I don't know, sweetheart. We just have to wait and see." I sat down in the chair beside his bed, Maya on my lap. I didn't take his hand, that felt like too much, too intimate for what we'd become. But I stayed. I watched. I waited. And somewhere in the silence, I started to pray. Not for reconciliation. Not for us to be together again. That ship had sailed long ago. But for Maya, for her to have a father who could walk her down the aisle someday. For her to have the chance to know him, really know him, faults and all. For Derek to have a second chance at becoming a better man. Janelle arrived an hour later. I heard her voice in the hallway before I saw her, that familiar voice, now thick with tears. She came through the door with Derek Jr. on her hip, freezing when she saw me sitting beside the bed. "Yolanda!" "Janelle." We stared at each other across the room. Two sisters, torn apart by the man who lay unconscious between us. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said softly. "He's Maya's father. She has a right to see him." Janelle nodded slowly, accepting this. She crossed the room and stood on the other side of the bed, looking down at Derek's still face. Tears streamed down her cheeks, falling freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know that doesn't mean anything. I know sorry can't fix what I did. But I'm sorry, Yolanda. Every single day I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words were stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat, tangled up in 2 years of anger and grief. But I didn't tell her to leave either. We sat there together in that hospital room, me and the sister who'd betrayed me, our children on our laps, watching the man who'd broken us both fight for his life. And something shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever, but something. Derek woke up 5 days later. It wasn't dramatic. The way it happens in movies, no sudden gasp, no eyes flying open, no immediate recognition of everyone gathered around him. It was slow, gradual. A twitch of his fingers, a flutter of his eyelids, a soft groan that made everyone in the room hold their breath. And then finally his eyes opened. Miss Caroline burst into tears. Marcus grabbed his brother's hand, saying his name over and over. The doctors rushed in, checking vitals, asking questions, shining lights in his eyes. I stood in the corner with Maya, watching from a distance. "Daddy awake?" Maya asked, her little voice full of hope. "Yes, baby, Daddy's awake." She squirmed in my arms, wanting to go to him. I hesitated, unsure if this was the right moment, unsure if Derek was ready, unsure of everything. But then Derek's eyes found us across the room. "Maya," he whispered, his voice raspy and weak. "My baby girl." I carried her over to the bed. She reached for him immediately, her small hand patting his bandaged cheek. "Daddy hurt?" "A little bit, sweetheart, but I'm okay now." He looked up at me then, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Not love, that wasn't it, something deeper. Regret maybe, recognition. An understanding that he'd almost lost everything, including the chance to watch his daughter grow up. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being here, for bringing her." I nodded once, not trusting myself to speak. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something. A beginning, maybe, or an ending, I wasn't sure which. The accident changed Derek, that's what everyone said anyway. Miss Caroline claimed he was more reflective, more thoughtful, more aware of what really mattered in life. Marcus said his brother had finally grown up, that the brush with death had knocked some sense into him. I wasn't sure I believed it. People don't change overnight, not really. And Derek had spent years being the man who cheated on his pregnant wife with her sister. That doesn't disappear just because you wake up in a hospital bed. But I noticed small differences in the months that followed. He was more present during his visits with Maya. Instead of checking his phone or rushing through their time together, he actually engaged with her, playing on the floor, reading books, taking her to the park. He asked about her life, her interests, her friends at daycare. He stopped trying to win me back. That was the biggest change. For 2 years, Derek had been relentless, calling, texting, showing up, making grand gestures that were more about his guilt than my healing. But after the accident, he stopped. "I know I can't undo what I did," he told me one afternoon, dropping Maya off after their weekend visit. "I'm not going to insult you by pretending I can, but I want to be a good father. I want Maya to have something positive to remember about me." I studied his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation, the angle. I didn't find one. "That's all I've ever wanted," I said finally. "For you to be the father she deserves." He nodded slowly. "I'm trying. I know it's late, but I'm trying." Janelle and Derek didn't last. I heard about it from my mother, who still tried to keep me updated on Janelle's life even though I told her not to. The relationship had crumbled under the weight of its own foundation. A relationship built on betrayal and lies was never going to become something healthy and whole. "She's moved out," Mama told me over coffee one morning, Maya playing in the next room. "Got a little apartment on the east side, trying to start over. Good for her. She asks about you, you know. Every time I see her, she asks how you're doing." I sipped my coffee, not responding. "She's still your sister, Yolanda. She's still family." "Family doesn't do what she did," Mama sighed, setting down her cup. "No, they don't, but people make terrible mistakes. People hurt each other in ways that seem unforgivable. And sometimes," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "sometimes forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you, about letting go of the poison so you can heal." "I am healing. Are you, or are you just surviving?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Was there a difference? I'd spent so long focusing on getting through each day, putting one foot in front of the other, building a life for me and Maya. I'd called it healing. But maybe Mama was right. Maybe I'd been surviving, not living, existing, not thriving. Maybe the anger I was holding onto wasn't protecting me anymore. Maybe it was holding me back. I reached out to Janelle 3 months later. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a text message, simple and direct. "I'm not ready to forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I'm tired of carrying this anger. Can we talk?" She responded within minutes. "Yes, whenever you want, I'll be there." We met at a coffee shop on neutral ground, neither her territory nor mine. I arrived first, choosing a table in the corner where we could talk without being overheard. When Janelle walked in, I barely recognized her. She'd lost more weight since I'd last seen her. Her clothes hung loose on her frame. Her hair, once always perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, defeated, broken in a way that I recognized because I'd been broken too. She slid into the seat across from me, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "for giving me a chance to talk to you." "I'm not promising anything," I said carefully. "I just needed to understand. After everything, I still don't understand how you could do what you did." Janelle was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to explain it," she said finally. "I've asked myself that question every day for the past 3 years. How could I betray my own sister? How could I destroy the person who loved me most?" She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I was jealous of you, Yolanda. I know how horrible that sounds, but it's the truth. You had everything, the husband, the house, the baby on the way, and I had nothing. I was living in your guest room, working a dead-end job, watching you live the life I wanted. So you decided to take it from me. No, it wasn't like that, not at first." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Derek started paying attention to me, complimenting me, making me feel special in a way no one ever had before. And I was so desperate to feel wanted that I didn't stop to think about what I was doing. By the time I realized how wrong it was, I was already in too deep. You could have stopped. At any point, you could have stopped. I know, and I didn't. That's on me. I made that choice over and over again, and I have to live with it for the rest of my life." She reached across the table, hesitating, then pulled her hand back. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know I hate myself for what I did. Every single day. I look at my son, and I think about how his existence came from the worst thing I've ever done. I think about how he'll never know his sister the way he should because I destroyed our family." "Half-sister," I corrected automatically. "Half-sister," Janelle agreed. "But still blood, still family, and they don't even know each other because of me." I sat with that for a long moment. Maya and Derek Jr. They were siblings, half-siblings, connected by a father who'd betrayed us both. They had a right to know each other, didn't they? Right to a relationship that had nothing to do with what the adults in their lives had done. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said slowly. "I don't know if I ever will be, but I don't want Maya growing up not knowing her brother. That's not fair to either of them." Janelle's eyes widened. "You mean?" "I mean we can try. For the kids, small steps, supervised visits, we'll see how it goes." Janelle started crying again, not the quiet tears from before, but deep, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. "Thank you," she gasped. "Thank you, Yolanda. I know I don't deserve this. I know I don't deserve anything from you." "You're right, you don't." I stood up, gathering my purse. "But this isn't about you, it's about Maya. It's always been about Maya." I left her there in that coffee shop, crying into her hands. and I walked out into the sunlight feeling something shift inside my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of letting go. 5 years have passed since that day. Maya is 7 now. Smart, fierce, opinionated, everything I hoped she would be. She's in 2nd grade, reading above her level, asking questions about everything. She has Derek's smile and my stubbornness and a heart that's entirely her own. She knows her brother now, Derek Jr. DJ, everyone calls him, is 6 years old, a quiet boy with thoughtful eyes. The kids see each other twice a month, supervised playdates at the park or at my mother's house. They're not close, not yet, but they're learning to be family. Derek and I have found a rhythm. Not friendship exactly, that would be too much to ask, but mutual respect. Co-parenting that actually works. He's become the father I always hoped he could be, and Maya adores him. He and Janelle are still apart. He's dating someone new now, a woman I've never met, someone who has no connection to our history. I hope she makes him happy, not for his sake, but for Maya's. A happy father is a better father. Janelle and I are still working on it. We're not close. We may never be close again, but we can sit in the same room without tension. We can exchange small talk at family gatherings. We can put our children's needs above our own pain. Is that forgiveness? I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't a destination. Maybe it's a journey, a choice you make over and over again, every day, to let go of the anger instead of holding on. Some days I make that choice easily. Other days, the old hurt rises up, and I have to fight it back down. But I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. So here I am at the end of this story. A story that began with the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced and ended with something I never expected, not a happy ending exactly, but a peaceful one. A life rebuilt from ashes. A family redefined. A heart that learned to heal, even when healing seemed impossible. I won't pretend the journey was easy. There were nights I cried until I couldn't breathe. There were mornings I didn't want to get out of bed. There were moments when the anger was so overwhelming I thought it would consume me. But I survived. More than that, I lived. I learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every single time. I learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up for you, who hold you together when you're falling apart, who love you even when you're broken. And I learned that betrayal, as devastating as it is, doesn't have to define you. You get to decide who you become after the storm. You get to choose whether the pain makes you bitter or makes you better. I chose better. If you're listening to this story and finding pieces of yourself in it, if you've been betrayed by someone you loved, if your family has been torn apart, if you're wondering whether you'll ever heal, I want you to hear me. You will. It won't happen overnight. It won't be easy. There will be setbacks and tears and moments when you want to give up. But you will heal. You will find your way through the darkness. You will discover strength you didn't know you had. And one day, you'll look back at this chapter of your life and realize it was just a chapter. Not the whole story. Not the ending. Just a painful part of a much bigger, much more beautiful journey. So I ask you, here at the end, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to keep going? And if you're still in the middle of it, if you're still struggling, still hurting, still trying to figure out your next step, what do you need to hear right now? Tell me in the comments. Share your story. Let's heal together. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss new stories. Your support means everything. It's what allows me to keep sharing these stories, to keep building this community of people who understand what it means to survive. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Hold your loved ones close. And remember, no matter what anyone has done to you, no matter how broken you feel right now, you are stronger than you know. You are worthy of love. You are capable of healing. And your story is far from over. This is Yolanda, and this has been my story.